What's up guys, Saf here on Super Saf TV, and it's almost the end of 2023, and that means it's time for my traditional top 5 smartphones of the year. Now, a few disclaimers before we start. As always, I have used lots of different smartphones this year, but of course I've not used every single one. So there may be one of your favorites that's not in this list, and that's absolutely fine guys. We can still be friends. Drop your favorites down in the comments. Also, this list is in no particular order. I'm giving you just my top 5 favorites. However, I will be revealing my daily drivers, the devices that I'm taking with me to 2024 in the end of year Super Saf style collaboration with all of my friends. You're gonna want to see that first, so do subscribe and hit that bell icon if you haven't already. With all of that out of the way, let's get to my list. Now, I did do a mid-year version of this video, and there were lots of comments in that video saying, why are there no iPhones in your list? But that video was done back in May and there were no new 2023 iPhones back then. However, we have had the new iPhones, so it just makes sense to start with my favorite iPhone this year, which is the first on this list. And I think there's no surprises here. For me, it is the iPhone 15 Pro Max. Now, this is an excellent overall smartphone with an amazing display, great build, and some of the most consistent cameras out there, especially when it comes to video. I still would say that the iPhone 15 Pro Max has the best video on any smartphone. We now also have 5x zoom, which is excellent for portraits. And we have the new A17 Pro, which is the industry's first 3nm chipset on a smartphone. And that allows you to play console level games right on your iPhone. We also now finally have USB Type-C, and although this is not an innovation by any means, it's something that should have been there many years ago. I'm just so glad it's here and I don't have to carry around so many cables. Now, there was some overheating issues initially that people reported, but we did get a software update and it's something that I've not experienced massively. And although we have this new action button, it's really not very reachable, so I've not used it much at all. And the same goes for the dynamic island, which is great for animations and information, but it's the topmost element of the screen, which I just don't find myself interacting with. Now, the iPhone 15 Pro is very similar and it does get an honorable mention. It just doesn't have that 5x telephoto camera. But the iPhone 15 and the iPhone 15 Plus do not make my list this year. And that's because, to me, although they're good smartphones, they don't really stand out. They are almost iPhone 14 Pros slightly cut back with the same A16 Bionic chip, a 60Hz display, not a promotion display, no telephoto camera, and the build not being as premium as the Pro models. Moving on, the second smartphone on my list, once again in no particular order, is the opposite of Apple, and that is Google. It's the Google Pixel 8 Pro. Now, traditionally, the Pixel Pro devices, although they are very good, they sometimes have some cutbacks which don't put them right up against the competition. This year, however, the Pixel 8 Pro is a true flagship which goes head to head with anything out there. It's got an amazing display, one of the brightest at 2400 nits, and excellent cameras with Google's processing. Now, I know not everybody loves Google's processing. Some people do feel that it's overprocessed, but I absolutely love it, especially the dynamic range, some of the best you're gonna get. And of course, because it's from Google, we get the clean Android experience with 7 years of OS and security updates promised. Now, there's a star there. This is something that's promised. We're gonna have to wait and see if Google do deliver on this promise. But regardless, some of the AI software features that you're gonna get on the Pixel 8 Pro, you're not gonna get on pretty much any other device out there, such as Magic Editor, Audio Magic Eraser, and my favorite, Best Take. Now, some of these features do take some time to process because everything has to go into the cloud. We do have the Tensor G3, which is fine for your day-to-day, but it doesn't really match up to the high performance of some of the other flagships out there. We also have a temperature sensor, which is something that I've literally only used for the review and not touched since. And the price has increased compared to the Pixel 7 Pro last year. However, Google have had some crazy deals, such as getting the Pixel Watch 2 for free with the purchase of a Pixel 8 Pro. I'll leave some of the latest Black Friday deals for the Pixel 8 Pro and other devices down in the description if you're interested. Now, an honorable mention does have to go to the Pixel 8, which has lots of the features that the Pixel 8 Pro has. It now has a 120Hz display, which is not as bright, but we do have similar cameras and lots of the same features at a lower price, as well as a more compact form factor. And also, the Pixel 7a is a great option if you are in a budget, which has lots of the features that we had last year on the Pixel 7, and something that I can easily recommend to a lot of people. Now, the third smartphone on my list was actually one that was probably one of the first that released in 2023, but it still holds up and goes head to head with all of the other flagships. It is, of course, the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra. Now, yes, it's an incremental update. It looks pretty much exactly the same as the S22 Ultra, but in my opinion, this is still the best all-rounder. We've got a great display, excellent consistent cameras with the best extended zoom on any smartphone. And this year, we finally got Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 across the board. No Exynos and Qualcomm battle this year. The battery life has still been good and still holds up. And we do have the S Pen, which, although I don't use all the time, I'm so glad it's there and it's very, very useful, something you don't get on many other devices. Now, it has been overtaken by other devices in certain departments, such as, for example, the display, which is good, but it's not as good as some of the other competition out there. But the S24 Ultra is just around the corner and it's probably going to bring lots of the improvements. Now, if you're still thinking of getting the S23 Ultra right now, I can still recommend it. And once again, you can get some really, really good deals. I'll leave those linked down in the description below. Now, I do have to give some honorable mentions to the S23 as well as the S23 Plus. They have a lot of the features that the S23 Ultra has, but at a lower price, and especially the S23, very, very compact and easy to recommend. So that's 3. Now, my last 2 picks, they were very difficult to decide on, but I finally settled on 2 foldables. The Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5 is an excellent device overall and still a really good foldable option. However, it has not made my list. And that's because although Samsung is the innovator of this category and it still has some of the best multitasking software, I do think that they have been overtaken in the hardware department. And the leader in foldable hardware, in my opinion, is the Honor Magic V2, and it has made my list. Now, this is easily the best foldable when it comes to hardware because it doesn't feel like a foldable. It weighs just 231 grams, which is less compared to the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And when it's folded, it's under 10 millimeters thin. And this to me is what the dream of a foldable is. You shouldn't have to have a compromise when you're using it close. It should feel like a regular smartphone. The display is not narrow, the device is not thick. And when you do want to experience that full folding display, you can open it up and then you can use it for multitasking, gaming, or whatever you'd like. Both displays are 120 Hz. They're really good. We've got the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, and somehow Honor have managed to fit in a massive 5,000 total milliamp hour battery in this very thin and light form factor. We still get 66 watt charging included out of the box, which you don't get on many other smartphones. However, there is a bit of a catch. The Honor Magic V2 isn't readily available in the West as yet, but it will be coming in the next few months. And I cannot wait for the next version of the Honor Magic V2. And that brings us on to the final pick in the list, once again in no particular order. And that is the OnePlus Open or the Oppo Find N3, depending on your region. Now, this is not as compact as the Honor Magic V2, but it's still relatively compact for a foldable. And once again, no compromises. We've got a full usable cover display, which feels like you're using a regular smartphone. And best of all, it's one of the brightest displays you're going to find out there with a peak brightness of 2800 nits, refresh rate of 120 Hz. This is both for the cover display as well as the folding display. Now, because the device is from OnePlus, it's an absolute spec monster. 16 gigabytes LPDDR5X RAM, 512 gigabytes UFS 4.0 storage, Wi-Fi 7, 8 Gen 2, and we also have really good flagship cameras with no compromise. 67 watts of fast charging included out of the box, and I really do like the canvas style multitasking that you get on the OnePlus Open. I think it's one of the best multitasking features that you've got on any foldable. Now, on the foldable side, I do want to give some honorable mentions. One is to the Google Pixel Fold, which is the first attempt at a foldable from Google, and it is really nice. I think it still needs some work on the hardware. It's still quite heavy, and we do have those bezels. And on the flip side of things, the Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 5 almost made my top 5 list, and that's because it finally has a large usable cover display at 3.4 inches, excellent software optimized for the foldable form factor, and still under $1,000 in the US, but the price has increased in the UK. Now, we also did have the Motorola Razr 40 Ultra or the Razr Plus in the US, and that is a great flip smartphone, but it still has last year's 8 Plus Gen 1 chip, and it's just not as sturdy with the hinge compared to the Z Flip 5. And of course, there were lots of other excellent smartphones this year, which do get honorable mentions. The OnePlus 11, taking things back to the roots of OnePlus in my opinion, the Honor Magic 5 Pro, an excellent flagship from Honor, the ROG Phone 7 Ultimate, the best gaming phone in my opinion, and the Zenfone 10, which I think is still the best compact phone that you can buy. A lot of these devices were covered in my mid-year top 5 picks, which I did in collaboration with Marquez. You can also see his top 5 picks. I'll link that video in the cards and down in the description. But some phones that release later in the year, the Nothing Phone 2, I still think it's quite unique with the Glyph interface and has some of the cleanest software out there. And on the budget side of things, I think Tecno and Infinix are doing really good things, although a lot of those devices are not available in the West. Now with Xiaomi, Vivo and Oppo, some great smartphones they've released this year. However, they seem to either not come out in the West or come out very late in the West, which has not given me the ability to fully cover them. And in particular with Oppo, they seem to have not been pushing so much in the Western markets. I'm hoping that will change next year. So that is my top 5 list. I know it's going to be different to your favorites. Drop those down in the comments below. And I will be revealing my daily drivers in that upcoming collaboration. If you want to see that first, do subscribe and hit that bell icon. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it useful. If you did, do smash that like button for me. I'll leave the related videos that we talked about here and here. Thanks for watching. This is Saf on Super Saf TV, and I'll see you next time.